Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. I'm excited to share this video with you here today. If you find this information to be informative, please feel free to share it, and also subscribe to Rethinking the Dollar for more great content to come in the future. Thanks. Enjoy.
Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. This is episode 2. Today I am joined by Mr. Stephen Macaskill, CEO of Amagi Metals. And today I decided to ask him to come join us, and I appreciate him being able to free up some time to be able to educate us on the various issues dealing with monetary policies as well as precious metals, things like that. So, Stephen, welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. You're episode number 2, and so you are definitely blessing me with your presence. And I just wanted to introduce you and give you a chance to introduce yourself to the world and the audience that will see this. And we can begin with some of those questions I sent you.
What an honor to be on your second episode. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Yeah, my pleasure. Okay, just to give our audience a little bit of a understanding and a background of you and how you became the second guest here, just some of your qualifications, things you're interested in, things that you specialize in when it comes to the monetary aspect of things.
Yeah, so I went to school for financial economics and have always had an interest in sound money and precious metals. And now I think that sound money goes beyond precious metals. And I think that we live in a very interesting time for monetary policy. I think that we're going to have some big changes with our monetary system over the next 2 decades. And it's pretty amazing to see a lot of different industries and people coming together. And I think that there's a lot of hope for financial responsibility and sound money within the next few decades.
All right, fair enough. I understand that. Okay, well, I appreciate that. All right, so I prepared a couple questions for you. So I want to dive into those questions. Not sure if you have them handy, but I'll just call them off. And if anything else comes to mind, but I want to just pack as much content as possible in this conversation so that those who hear this can get the most information in a short, concise time frame here. So this whole blog here being entitled Rethinking the Dollar. And so what does that reference to you? What does that mean to you when you think of rethinking the dollar? What's going on now and what you project or predict? Where does that fit in where we're currently at and where you see the dollar itself?
Yeah, well, I think that there's been a huge disconnect between the average person and what money actually stands for. What is money? And I think that that has it is due to 100 years of perverse incentives. People used to understand what sound money was, used to understand that it was a commodity that had value. And then people started, and specifically organizations started what I think are playing tricks on the public. Basically mind games. First, they started to go off the gold standard, and the first step was in issuing paper backed by gold and silver. So people weren't using gold and silver anymore; they started using paper. And then from there, using the same paper, they just removed its connection with sound money, stopped the issuing paper for gold and silver. It just became a free-floating system. And at that same time, also a new monetary system known as the Federal Reserve was coming around as well. Right. So I think those things, along with lack of education in the public school system, and then along with massive amounts of money printing and inflation, people have less of an incentive to save and manage their money every year. So I think that many people don't really think about what the dollar is in the first place. Right. If you go around and asking them, who is Janet Yellen? What is the Federal Reserve? Right. Most people would have no clue, even though every single dollar bill in the United States has Federal Reserve System written on it. Right. People don't know what the heck it is. So I think a big thing is just thinking about the dollar and not even rethinking it. We have to see what it is and understand that it is controlled by less than 1,000 people, the politicians in Washington, D.C., and they like to print the money. They like to print, and we've seen that over the last 100 years, massive amounts of inflation. The dollar has lost 98% of its value.
Right.
So to me, I think rethinking the dollar is evaluating it for what it actually is. It's a piece of paper backed by nothing, and it's continually being inflated through money printing, and it's lowering our standard of living. So and many people don't understand that it's another taxation that we don't see every day. It's a hidden tax on the people.
Right.
And the people who are affected the most are, I think, the poorest in this country.
Right. Well, great assessment there. And I kind of arrived at the title, Rethinking the Dollar, with the same mindset of first you have to, know what it is to be able to begin rethinking it. And so it's basically being taught, what money is the first time so that you then can assess where we're at now so you can begin structuring, your current thought process of it. Kind of separating yourself from the emotional aspect, because I know when I think of just the green paper itself, it kind of stirs up some emotions, like, just the feelings of like just having a green piece of paper, regardless of the denomination, you feel that attachment to it. So the goal with this is to basically help people understand the importance of being able to shift their paradigm when it comes to the dollar. So definitely appreciate that. And then also you mentioned earlier about how over time, people have been, kind of weaned off the concept of sound money being attached to the dollar itself. And so I kind of, in my studies, realized that it's been like a generational, a progressive generational dumbing down of the population. For example, from 1792 to 1873 was about an 80 or so year period, or give or take, where all we knew was sound money. All they knew. We weren't here, but all they knew was sound money. And then from 73 to 1913-ish was another 40-ish type of realm where went from the gold standard to Federal Reserve came about, and from 13 up until 70-ish or so, 40, 50 years of back money, but yet it wasn't accessible to us as a population. And then now here we are, 71 till 15, which is another 43 or so years. So every generation has just been more and more dumbed down or weaned off something sound, to where now no one really seemed to care about what's attached to it, because they have that perceived value still. So but that's one thing. So I appreciate that. Now, when it comes to rethinking a dollar itself, first you have to understand it to begin to rethink it. Monetary literacy, like everything that shapes the dollar has to deal with monetary policies done in D.C. or through the Fed. Now, becoming more literate in that regards there. What are some things that you think can help people to begin to think about the monetary aspect of understanding the policies and legislation behind where we're currently standing now, being on an unbacked, fiat piece of paper?
Yeah, well, I think a big thing with monetary literacy and improving your own financial situation requires practice. It's just like reading a book. You have to start somewhere. It's best to sometimes do it with somebody else, an elder who knows what they're doing. And if you look at monetary history and financial literacy, usually it's the exact same concepts that your grandparents know, and they've had to have these concepts because they were around during or some of them were around during the Great Depression. Right. They didn't trust banks. They didn't trust institutions. They didn't have a safety net. They knew that what they earned, it was what they needed to learn how to manage and how to basically live below their means, so that they, if an emergency or retirement or children's education or something comes along, they're well cushioned, they're protected from those events. So I think the big thing is spend an hour a week at least to
Hmm.
manage your finances. It's just like reading a book. It requires practice, and you're not going to get financial literacy unless you spend a block of time every week, 2 weeks, or whatever you're comfortable with starting to get off the ground to start living below your means and improving your personal financial situation.
Right. Good point. Good point. So an hour a week would be a great starters for people to begin to educate themselves. Now, as far as educating themselves on their financial side, what would be one or two ways, or on a more practical level to begin, like an ideal step? You say an hour. Okay, an hour is a great chunk of time, but what's for someone who probably have no financial background, coming from a lesser upbringing to where money was an issue. What step would you say would be the ideal practical step to begin that 1 hour for that first week or second week type of thing? What would be the something to get you some momentum?
Yeah, well, great question. I recommend Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey.
Hmm.
He is one of the 100 most influential people in the United States because he has changed the lives of millions of people.
Hmm.
And he will tell you the exact same thing. It's what your grandma teaches you, what your grandparents know. It's living below your means. And so he has this idea called 7 baby steps. And I really like his method because it's very simple and easy to understand. So I recommend reading his book
Hmm.
if you have the time. If not, I can give you a brief breakdown. His first step is to develop an emergency fund. And that emergency fund is $1,000. It's
Right.
$1,000 that you keep for yourself at home or you're at the bank. And that is in case something happens, your car breaks down, you need a bill that you have to pay for, you have that safety net for yourself.
Right.
So get $1,000. Once you get there, it shouldn't be too difficult if that's the only thing that you're focusing on.
Hmm.
Once you get there, then he says to focus on paying off your debts. That's the next baby step, and he
Right.
calls it the debt snowball. And so, and that requires a little bit of budgeting. So that would require you sitting down to see how much income you're bringing in, to see if you need to bring in more income, working a job, doing whatever. As an Uber driver, a Lyft driver, pizza delivery, whatever you need to do if you have an income gap that to fill your expenses.
Right.
And from there, start seeing how you can save money. I after a month sitting down an hour looking at your budget every week, seeing where your money's coming and going, you'll start seeing patterns, and those patterns will help you see where you can start saving money. So
Right.
I would say that those would be the first few steps.
Okay, that's fair enough. That is great. Now, let's shift a little bit. I want to get into some more detailed information on what's going on globally. There's a lot of things happening. I know you follow everything. And so with the Swiss National Bank recently just doing what they did on pegging from the euro and the Ukraine and Russia. I'm not sure if you follow geopolitical events. Do you tend to stay up on top of those things?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so you're aware. Okay, now with the whole situation with the West versus East now, which has turned into some unfortunate rivalry type of thing that we're putting ourselves in a bad position, I believe. But with the concept of de-dollarization, like that word, de-dollarization could be two words. Those two words there are one word. However you want to put it. I think they're words that I've never heard in my lifetime. And being that we are currently the reserve status of the world, or of the globe rather, this de-dollarization process is underway. Can you give me your thoughts on that and what that means and how that affects us here in America?
Yeah, well, I think it's very complex because it involves many entities around the world,
Hmm.
um, both entities such as sovereign nations,
Hmm.
like the United States, Russia, China, the European Union, and then entities that aren't controlled by any organizations or individuals, such as Bitcoin
Right.
and other decentralizing technologies that are coming out. We're connected more than ever before through the internet, and so it's going to be a pretty interesting next 2 decades. I would say I don't have a definite answer of what could happen. This, for example, the BRIC nations, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the BRICS, are working on developing a competing system, a monetary system to the SWIFT system.
Right.
And the SWIFT system was set up by the Federal Reserve and I believe the IMF as well, to allow, and it came out before the internet, to allow banks to send money from one bank to another, from one individual to another. It's a communication system for money. And the BRICS are now working on developing their own competitive system. So which will rely on their currencies rather than relying on the dollar. As you said, the dollar is the world reserve currency, but I'm not sure if that's going to be the case in a decade because of the rise in the Eastern nations.
Right.
As for whether that's going to be bad, I think that it could definitely be bad for the dollar if the United States focuses on keeping the dollar as a world currency, because the United States is losing, the dollar is losing its power, I think, over the next decade. However, now that there's going to be more competitive systems, that could give politicians an incentive to reel in their expenditures, reel in their massive inflationary policies, and to create a more sound currency.
Right.
So we could have a lot stronger sovereign currencies down the road because of competition between many different currencies. These currencies could have more incentives to back themselves with hard assets such as platinum, gold, silver, and whatnot. So I think that the dollar has a lot of struggles in the near future. However, I think that it could definitely help the dollar in 5 to 10 years. However, I also think that now that we have cryptocurrencies and a global information system, the internet, that I think that it will be inevitable that we move towards these digital currencies that are not controlled by the whims of politicians. And so I think that in the long run, no matter what the dollar does to try and survive, it will die off, just because of these new digital currencies that are trusted a lot more because they aren't controlled or have power from few individuals or specific organizations. So it's going to be a very interesting time, and also trillions of dollars, I think, or at least billions of dollars, are going to be invested in what's known as financial technology or fintech. And that's a really big industry as well that people are trying to get into.
Right. Okay. And I noticed that in that you kind of also, to sum it all up, from what I got from that was just the world is looking for alternatives.
Absolutely.
The world's looking for alternatives, and it's becoming more popular that there are alternatives out there to the dollar, which will change the monetary system as we go ahead. Now, just I know, and I'm going to get into your stance and your movement that you have going on for 2017, which really excites me. And so, in getting into that conversation there, the alternatives that you mentioned, the fintech, as you mentioned, that's a new term to me, but I appreciate that. Cryptocurrencies. That's something I'm just coming across over the last year or so. Still doing my homework on it, but yet definitely it intrigues me because it's an alternative. And that's one of the premises behind Rethinking the Dollar is, rethinking it, knowing what it is, rethinking it, but then looking for alternative means of preserving your capital and your wealth. And so your experience, you have experience with the cryptocurrency world, the basics. How would you describe the basics, and how can that be of benefit to our audience down the line?
Yeah, well, some people consider Bitcoin as magic internet money.
Mm-hmm.
But what I like to say is that it's a decentralized digital currency, which allows anyone to send any amount of money to anyone, anywhere in the world, instantly with low or no transaction fees.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, I want to, from an international perspective, if I want to send money, I'm actually originally from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to send money to my cousin in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to wait until Monday morning. I'd have to drive to the bank. I'd have to spend $50 to send a bank wire, and it would take 3 or 4 days to get there.
Right.
Now, with my cell phone or with my computer, I can on a Saturday or Sunday at any time, so at 2 a.m. if I want,
Mm-hmm.
I can get onto my computer, I can send the money. She would receive it instantly, and the transaction fees would be almost nothing. I don't have to get in my car or drive anywhere. So
Right.
the benefits are enormous. It allows for microtransactions, micro loans.
Mm-hmm.
I can give someone a millionth of a penny or pay for a service. So I think that we're going to save a lot of costs, especially in the digital world with things like bandwidth and internet usage.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it has a lot of technological aspects outside of money. And I think that's what gives the money value. There's a finite amount of units,
Mm-hmm.
21 million Bitcoin units.
Mm-hmm.
And those 21 million, that finite amount, is on this revolutionary protocol, this technology, and that's what gives this finite amount of currency value, is because there are so many different applications outside the realm of money for this currency. And we're moving into a world that is being more and more decentralized,
Mm-hmm.
and Bitcoin is helping us get there. And for example, it will help us decentralize the internet, decentralized voting systems, decentralized email systems, and markets such as stock exchanges, eBay, online marketplaces, commodity exchanges. And so that's going to be very interesting, because it's going to give us a lot more freedom to be able to do global business.
Right.
And it's a really interesting space, and I definitely recommend. There's a lot to be learned if you want to start learning about digital currency and Bitcoin. But once you get in, it's a vortex. You'll get sucked in, and you'll never go back.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, definitely, it seems like it's nothing but opportunity for exploration into the future. And I also just recently read about, I guess the with the Gemini, with the Twinklevoss brothers and Coinbase, they're looking to start a U.S. exchange here and things like that. And so I'm looking into that myself. So that's just, I guess, more opportunities for it to become more mainstream, for people to be able to actually acquire it on an easier basis rather. So. Definitely entertaining there. Now, one thing I mentioned to you earlier in the email was just how, I believe that you are a pioneer in the game of being able to link the crypto with the sound, and to pretty much start a revolution in a sense of doing something that, I don't know of any other people in your position is doing, as far as accepting cryptocurrency, as well as having something coming up pretty soon that will pretty much change the game in my sense to dealing with commerce wise. So give me a little information as to what that is, and and how your business itself is doing cryptocurrency, and then give us a little information about what's happening to 2017.
Yeah, well, we started accepting Bitcoin in 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and we've we've done over $15 million in Bitcoin sales, and we've been a huge advocate of cryptocurrency. As I said, I think that the technology is helping the currency become a commodity, and I think that's the first step for it to turn into sound money. It's very volatile. I think that it has a long way to go. However, I think that its potential to become sound money is enormous. And so as of right now, we can spend, you can buy pretty much anything with Bitcoin, at least by 1 degree, or I'd say more than 50% of the things within the United States. So I think by the beginning of 2017, we'd like to move over to a full cryptocurrency model. I think that, as in we'll be only accepting cryptocurrency for our precious metals. And so we've started to take the first step. Actually, this month, all of our employees will be receiving some portion of their income in Bitcoin, and which is terrific. It was all voluntary. Initially, it was just going to be me, but everyone wanted to get paid in Bitcoin. So that's going to be terrific. I can pay for rent. I can pay for food. I can pay for a lot of services with Bitcoin now. I could pretty much live entirely on Bitcoin if I wanted to. So I'm taking a big portion of my salary in Bitcoin, and it's really exciting to move into that space. Our vendors will be accepting Bitcoin in 6 months. I think that by the end of this year, companies like Amazon will be accepting Bitcoin, and that'll be incredible. I mean, something like 20 of the top 100 websites in the world already work with or accept Bitcoin, and that's only increasing. The adoption is growing exponentially. I think the dollar is still going to be around. I think it's still going to be strong in 2 years. However, I'd rather be positioned in such a way that I don't get caught with my pants down. And I think that there's going to be like we saw with the ruble, it just crashed, lost something like 30% of its value in a week. I think that's going to happen to the dollar. I think that's inevitable. As a world reserve currency, the collapse could be even bigger. It could be something where it could lose 1,000% of its value in a week or a month or 6 months. And so I'd rather be prepared and not be caught with my pants down, especially as a precious metals dealer, selling sound money, selling something that people rush out to buy when current paper assets collapse. So I'd rather be positioned in such a way that we're not stuck holding worthless dollars. And I think that cryptocurrency is a great gateway for us to get there.
All right, so it's kind of like either you get on board now or get left behind.
Exactly.
Interesting. Now, okay, now you gave us some information on how to begin to rethink our mind, rethink the dollar itself, as far as taking an hour and recommended Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. I did it. Me and my wife a couple years ago. Really changed our lives. So I know the power behind that. And so now to bring it back home now, in predicting the future of the dollar, and you mentioned alternatives, things like that. Not able to give financial advice, but yet, what are some methods and some steps that people can begin to take on introducing themselves to alternatives? What would be an ideal way to just open your mind up to educating yourself before taking action on some practical ways to get involved in alternatives?
Well, if you're interested in Bitcoin, I definitely recommend researching it first. It's going to require a lot of reading. I believe bitcoin.org has a lot of material and information for people interested in looking into Bitcoin. Again, as you said, Total Money Makeover and Dave Ramsey is a great book. Another person that I highly recommend is Robert Kiyosaki. He has a wonderful book known as Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I definitely recommend that. However, I think that it requires just getting your toes wet. You have to do a little bit of reading, a little bit of research to start getting into that realm.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely recommend looking up what money is. Do research. What do you think money is? It's obviously a medium of exchange, but it has to have some kind of value. Where does that value come from?
Mm-hmm.
Where does the value of the dollar come from versus the value of commodities such as gold and silver? I definitely recommend looking into that because that will open up your eyes uh, a great deal to see kind of what I think is a scam.
Mm-hmm.
I think the dollar has become a scam
Yeah.
because it's not backed by anything. And as soon as you start looking at the history of money and learning what money is, I think that your eyes will be open. You'll be very shocked.
Yeah, I agree. And so, in the process of revamping my site now, and so I got a couple tools that I'm incorporating to really get people involved and get people thinking. The biggest thing is to get your mind churning and, really begin to, question what we've been taught and what we've settled for in regards to, information on anything, especially from our educational system, our school system on. And so I have what I call a money or monetary IQ quiz that I'm posting, which is going to be, sweet and simple, but yet people get a chance to see some of the historical aspects of money to where, just from the people who've taken it thus far, they didn't do too well. And
Yeah.
so, it's good to say, sad to say that, I predict a lot of people won't do as well. And, reason, I can say that, I've learned a few things just because I've studied. I've taken the time to open up some books and open up a lot of old 19th century literature to really go back and really educate myself. And so I think that's key. And so the Rethinking the Dollar, educational process is going to be dealing with a lot of historical stuff. I think that's going to be key to being able to, not necessarily predict, but prophesy the future of the dollar, if that's possible. But in closing, I wanted to get ready to wrap this up, and I appreciate you taking time. If you could go back to your younger self and give yourself some monetary / financial advice that would probably move you further along than where you're at now, or be able to help, your family, friends out type of thing, what would you recommend? Whether it be a book, you mentioned Dave and Robert. Give me one or two pieces of older literature that you might have read, whether it be had it been in college, or give me some of your favorite, commentaries out there that, you would say are very knowledgeable with where we're at and where we're going. And, just, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, well, so this isn't really specific to monetary, but issues. I think that it involves monetary plus what's going on within the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I recommend Ayn Rand and her book Atlas Shrugged. I think that is a great eye opener as to what's happening within the United States and and that's more looking at the philosophical issues within the United States. And Ayn Rand was a big advocate of the gold standard and sound money, and has a very good understanding of that, and looks at it more from a philosophical approach than anything else. So I definitely recommend reading that book. As to some suggestions, well, for the younger people out there, I learned college isn't always the answer. I know people are always pushing to go to college. Education is important. Education is important. And I agree. I think that education is very important. But that doesn't mean that you have to spend $200,000 for that education.
Right.
You can get the exact same education, maybe even a better education, because you're not spending 4 years getting drunk 4 days a week, or whatever. Some of these universities have just gotten crazy with their systems. So I would really think about what education means to you, what college means to you. And there are many professions, especially now, where you can educate yourself and without having to pay $200,000. So I think that's a great suggestion. Also, look at what really matters in life. To me, material items are no longer important, are as important. And so, to me, I purchase things secondhand, or just spend a lot less things on material stuff, especially when it comes to cars that lose 20% or 40% of their value in the first couple of years when you first buy them.
Right.
So, it's paying with cash is very important. Look at what you buy materially. I bet you that you could definitely change some of your values there. And then, like I said, evaluate college. I don't think that it's for everyone, and I think that a lot of people are being pushed into this from social pressure. But I think that's going to change as well over the next 5-10 years.
Right. I think, what you just mentioned about, how your values have changed as you've taken on, a different mindset, with, what's important, priorities. And I think it's been the same way for me, to where the more I've learned and more I've decided to educate myself, I've kind of reevaluated, my concept of value. What's valuable to me now, when I was younger, is not valuable to me as an adult, just as far as using secondhand things. And I purchase all my electronic items usually secondhand. I buy and like right now I have a S3 Samsung, and so they got the X6 coming out. And I don't need the S6 because that costs a lot of money, so I'll get the S4. So I'm always a step or two behind, but yeah, I save money, and I've learned to value my money and my energy and time, because that's what money boils down to me. But anyway, I thank you for sharing your time with me. Please share with us ways to get involved in what you're doing, and ways to be a blessing to you, and how can guys link up with you to be able to purchase from Amagi Metals. Tell us how to connect.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of resources on our website in regards to sound money, what is money, and financial responsibility. So I definitely recommend checking out our website, amagimetals.com. That's AMAGI Metals. We also have a Twitter handle, Amagi Metals, and we also have a Facebook page, and we post all kinds of information about world news, sound money, and all kinds of resources as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, Mr. Macaskill, I appreciate your time. I thank you for blessing me for my second episode. Looking forward to keeping in touch with you, and we will definitely, see what the days lie ahead for the dollar, and in this year 2015, which is going to be an interesting year in my opinion. But thank you. Thank you for your time. Yeah.